This week on Quality Digest Live, we examine what happens when consumerism comes to healthcare.
Plus, how do you prioritize when everything is equally important? We'll find out when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for September 9th, 2016. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme.
And we should, before you get into that, Dirk, say, nice job by Chris Smith on that new intro.
Oh yeah.
Very, very nice.
We've got, you guys may notice we have new graphics, new music,
right.
and all that. So thanks a lot to two-time Emmy Award-winning director Christopher Smith.
It looks great.
That's right.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Inhale.
Okay.
So, recreational cannabis is legal in Colorado and more states. Will most likely soon follow suit. Hey there, you got Snoop back there.
Snoop.
So, there's Snoop. See Snoop in the background. All right. So what does that mean besides storefronts will now sell cannabis? Well, whenever a brand new type of product is made available to the public, businesses will crop up to support it. I mean, kind of a business infrastructure, so to speak, to support some sort of new kind of product or business offering that's out there, including, in this case, lab testing. According to the online magazine Business Den, cannabis testing is mandatory for pot stores in Colorado. All recreational sold pot has to be tested before it can hit the shelves. And those stores have to pay for the testing. So, kind of a cha-ching, right? I mean,
that's right.
Normally we think of large businesses paying for lab testing, but according to this story anyway, the stores themselves, even if it's a mom and pop storefront, they have to test to make sure that their cannabis passes some guidelines that are set by the state. So according to the article in Business Den, just the 4 shops that make up the Starbuds, well, that's Starbuds, chain of recreational marijuana stores,
That's right.
Those 4 stores spend about $3,000 per month testing their cannabis samples. And that's just one group of stores. So there is money here, which is why Seth Wong and JJ Slatkin put up about $1.7 million into a new marijuana testing lab called TEQ, or Tech Analytical Labs, which was just accredited to ISO 17025. Some of you are familiar with that ISO standard. It's a lab standard by the accreditation body A2LA. According to a press release from A2LA, Tech Analytical Laboratories, based in Colorado, is the first recreational marijuana lab in North America accredited to the international standard. And if you think about it, this is kind of a big deal. I'm sure that there are going to be a lot more labs cropping up purporting to test cannabis, because obviously there is now money in this business. So being accredited to ISO 17025 means that a lab has shown that it has the competence to carry out tests and or calibrations and so forth required, including sampling, because remember what we're talking about here is these shops have to take a sample of the marijuana that they're going to be selling, the cannabis they're going to be selling, has to be tested, so that's on a sample basis in order to pass muster with the state.
Right.
Tech will test cannabis flowers and concentrates for a variety of factors, including intoxicating powder. In other words, intoxicating power.
Right.
How strong is it, and the presence of contaminants like microbes, fungus, bugs, and pesticides. Now, it should be said, this isn't just being started by 2 guys who know nothing about testing labs. Wong, I think one of the guys there, has been running a testing lab in Colorado, and that testing lab has been around for 70 years. So he comes from a background, he knows what testing labs are about, he knows what it's all about, and they're hiring top-notch lab people. It's not going to be just run by a bunch of
stoners,
hippies. Hey dude, let's test some cannabis. Hey man, you try Hey, how's that test to you? It tests great.
1.7 million for that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
I was going to say,
Got
man.
a lot of people in there testing pot. So, no, actually, serious business. The state is concerned with this, obviously, for a lot of reasons. They want to make sure that if you're selling a product to the public and it's legal, that it has to pass certain guidelines, and that's the whole reason for the testing labs. So.
Yeah, well, and yeah, like I said, we had a little fun with that story. But I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, if you're going to be presenting something to the public for sale, it's got to make sure, yeah, I mean, that's safe.
It's safe. It has in it what's supposed to have in it.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, because there are different grades to this, and they need to make sure that what's being sold is being adequately represented, and it's not going to make anybody ill. You know, there's been some issues with this too.
Sure.
There's been a lot of issues with this legalization in Colorado, and has gone on to other states as well. But I mean, one of those is this idea that, you know, people have to know what's in what they're ingesting. You know, people don't necessarily know sometimes, and, you know, testing labs will help them understand what exactly is in each dose or whatever you want to call it.
Right, and the purpose of 17025, just to kind of reiterate, is to, if you're not familiar with the standard, it when you're accredited, it verifies that your lab, meaning its equipment and its personnel, are capable, in other words, have the knowledge and the expertise to carry out the testing that the lab is required to do. So it's not just a rubber stamp. It means you have knowledgeable people and the right equipment and the capabilities to do the testing that's required of you. So
good
that's
stuff.
a good thing for them.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, A2LA. Good stuff there by them. All right. Well, sustainability is a top of the mind concern for anyone in industry today, and for a number of important reasons, I think. First and foremost, naturally, reducing waste is great for the bottom line, right? I mean, if you don't produce something that's going to not get sold, I mean, you're going to save some money with that, right? That's really important. The other thing is that it's a great thing to do for the planet and our descendants. I mean, stuff that doesn't go into landfills obviously is good for the planet, good for our progeny. And let's not forget that an increasing number of consumers give special consideration to sustainable companies. So taking this approach is great also from the sales and marketing perspective, right? All that stuff is good reason to be sustainable. Now, sustainability means many things to many people. For most, however, the first thing that would pop into your head when you think of the term sustainable is recycling, right? I mean, that's what most people associate with sustainability, is the concept of recycling stuff. But as Ken Chrisman argues in his article, Reducing Damage is the Key to True Sustainability, which ran in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily, there's really a lot more than that to it. Chrisman is the president of the Product Care Division at Sealed Air Corporation, which is a Fortune 500 company specializing in packaging materials and systems. So with that said, it's no surprise that he feels that an important and often overlooked dimension of sustainability is doing everything possible to avoid reproducing and reshipping a product that gets broken in transit the first time. And you know, if you think about it, that's an interesting perspective. I mean, it's not one that I really thought about it, but if you think about it, at least from the perspective of lean, for instance, inefficient packaging that causes a higher than expected rate of breakage can be considered as muda, right? It's non-value added, it's waste. It's really non-value added to the extreme. In fact, if you think about it, poorly designed packaging essentially commits every single one of the 7 deadly wastes. I actually looked at this last night and I thought about it, because there's these 7 wastes that we know of that have been known for quite some time, and you know, you try to eliminate those from your process if you want to run a lean shop. But I mean, think about the 7 deadly wastes. I mean, transportation, of course. You're
shipping it twice.
You're shipping it twice. You have to transport it twice and transport it back if it gets broken many times.
Oh, that's a good point. So it's
on both ends.
It gets
twice.
Instead of one shipping, it gets shipped 4 times.
It could potentially, right. Inventory, I mean, stuff that gets broken, it means you have to have more inventory to quickly get the next one out the door, right? Motion, I mean, it's all this moving around of having to pick and pack and move stuff in your facility to get that done. Waiting, I mean, many times the product maybe isn't ready yet. You've got to wait on your end, or the customer's got to wait on his or hers. Overproduction, you've got to produce more to make up for the fact that it gets broken done. Overprocessing, the handling of having to do that again and again, writing up a ticket to say why it got broken and filing it and maybe doing a root cause analysis as to why it got broke, all that stuff. And then just defects, of course. It's a defect. If it got broken, it was defective. The packaging was probably the part of that was defective, not necessarily the product itself. So next time that a product that you ordered online gets to you safe and sound, that could be through, who knows, through FedEx or through UPS or through a drone, whatever, who knows. You get something, right. Next time that happens, take a moment to appreciate the packaging that saved you some hassle, saved your vendor of choice some money, and then saved our planet from extra junk in a landfill somewhere. That article to me was really, really interesting. Because I didn't think about it. As I was reading it, I'm like, that makes really good sense. I mean, it's a very unlean process to get stuff broken when you ship it. I mean, and if the packaging is right, of course he's got a dog in the fight, he's worked for a packaging company. But I mean, if the packaging is done properly, that adds a lot of value because it doesn't detract from value through the mood of being created through the process. Really interesting piece, interesting perspective there by Ken Chrisman.
A lot about that is. Yeah, I mean, and how many times? I mean, a lot of us order stuff now from, from Amazon or eBay or something.
Yeah, whatever.
And how often? I had it just recently. Received a product that was damaged because the packaging was non-existent.
Right.
It was a fragile product, and there was no packing around it at all.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And so, so eBay or the vendor refunds me.
I mean, they make good on it.
They make good on it. But meanwhile, they've got to ship one out again. I've got to ship what I had back to them.
And it's going to go in a landfill.
Exactly.
It's really not sustainable to suboptimize your shipping packaging. So that's really what Ken Chrisman was saying in that article. Good piece there.
Yeah. All right. In the article, Consumerism in Healthcare, author Brooke Pierce points out that consumer preferences have changed the way we buy most things, even healthcare, because we, as patients, are being asked to pay more and more of our healthcare costs, from premiums to copays to deductibles. We want to be more involved in how and where that money is spent because of that. When you're spending more money for something, you care about where that money goes. If it's not much money, maybe you don't pay as much attention. But when you're paying a lot of money, as we are now for healthcare, you kind of care how it's going. And in the past, when insurance covered almost everything, was relatively cheap for the consumer, we just didn't care where the money went. The thought being, hey, it's not my money.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Why do I care? Waste away, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's not that anymore. Most of us are either paying higher insurance premiums or have higher deductibles, which means higher out-of-pocket expenses if you're having to go to healthcare. And so that means we're taking more out of our yearly take-home pay than we were, let's say, 10 years ago. And anytime, as I said, anytime you start seeing yourself spending real money, you're a bit more interested in how it gets spent. And Pierce writes in her article, for consumers to make better healthcare choices, to be involved in that, they need information about availability, cost, the quality of care, and the options that are available to them, at least at a minimum. That's what they're looking for. And fortunately, as she points out, there are several places to find some of this information. There's websites, and some of you probably used them. I have.
Yeah.
There's websites such as healthgrades.com, doctor.webmd.com, or vitals.com, and those usually provide reviews on healthcare providers from current and former patients. By the way, you can also find stuff on like Yelp, which maybe is, I'm not sure I'd go to Yelp for selecting a doctor, but you will find feedback. You will find feedback on places like Yelp or reviews in Google. There's also sites like Medicare's Hospital Compare and Physician Compare. Those are two different sites, or two different programs available that allow you to research their providers. And with new laws coming into effect, even more information about quality will be available in the coming years. And then this helps place some of the control, at least in provider selection, back into the consumer's hands. So you have a little bit better, and I've used it, selecting, going in for a procedure I've never had done before. Well, who's considered kind of the good doc in the area, and then, calling around, make sure, well, are you covered under my plan? And, a little call around, but rather than just randomly picking somebody out of the phone book, say, oh, I guess I'll go to this guy.
Yeah, which is how it's happened a lot.
Which is how it used to happen, yeah. So as a consumer, we should also be asking more questions, not just these. Why, when you're asking your doctors these questions, so as an involved consumer, you might be asking your doctor, once you go there, why are you running this test? It's a legitimate question. Is it necessary, or is it just routine, just one of a bunch of tests you normally run and we're just going to have you do it? Why are you prescribing that drug? Is it a brand drug? And if it is the generic available? These are questions that we're asking more and more, and you should have your doctor describe what they're doing and why. And by the way, I have noticed when I've gone to the doctor, more and more, I'm having the doctors actually, on their own, without me asking questions, start saying, okay, no, this is the reason we're running this test. Here's what we're going to do. Something that 10 years ago, the doctor would just come in, check you out, say, okay, we're going to give you this drug, or we're going to run this test, see you, goodbye. And now they're actually spending more time, amazingly, just really going through detail, and including, complete with, drawings and pictures. Here's what we're going to operate, here's what we're going to do, which really gives you, I think, as a patient, a little bit more security in what's going on.
Absolutely.
And, knowledge is everything.
Yep.
There is a flip side of this, of course. If patients are being proactive, then healthcare providers have to be looking at their own systems in order to improve and be competitive.
Imagine that.
Competitive.
Yeah.
Doctors don't like the idea that we're in competition.
Yeah.
I mean,
as real as it may be, they don't like to think about it.
It's like, no, we're not in a competitive. You are in a competitive business.
Yeah, of course.
Pierce suggests the following for providers. Invest in an information system that allows you to track your performance in various categories. Know your data. Track your performance over multiple periods and compare your performance to valuable benchmarks and competitors. Use your data, to identify strengths, weaknesses, and areas that need improvement, as well as areas you should consider eliminating. If your competitors can regularly outperform you in certain areas, your resources might be better deployed in areas where you are the leader. Leverage your strengths by providing strong performance and cost statistics to patients. Now, I know there are probably a lot of doctors and other healthcare providers that cringe at the idea of having to compete like a car dealership. Shop at Dr. Bob's.
Step right up. Get that gallbladder removed right here.
That's right.
Buy one, get one free.
Well, live with it. That's today's reality. You're competing. I'm sorry. Along with the car dealers, you're afraid that's the way it works now.
Yeah, it is.
Let me throw this in caveat, though, to consumers. You are not doctors. Right. Because you read something on the internet does not make it right. Listen to your healthcare provider. Ask questions. Use some of the resources mentioned in the article. And above all, use your brain. It's your health and your money. Spend wisely. Use it wisely.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dirk. Yeah, I think it's excellent.
Everybody does this. It's like, let me look up this. Oh my gosh.
I've got cancer.
I've got cancer.
No, you don't.
I got the Ebola.
You have a headache. No, but I mean, yeah, but I think that there's a couple of takeaways there. I mean, obviously, yes, as you say, for consumers, there's a fine line there. But I mean, it certainly helps to be proactive. And for me, I think that thinking about it, it's your body. And in my mind, the doctor's not responsible for my health, for my health care. I'm responsible.
Exactly.
I'm responsible for keeping myself healthy, and I've got to understand the things that I do at home are going to be 100 times more important than what the doctor's going to do in the office visit, right? I mean, the way I eat, the way I exercise, the way I move, the way I think, mental outlook's really important. So there's a lot of things you can do as a consumer. But I mean, for doctors, I think understanding the environment that you're in now is really important too. If you're in the healthcare profession, because you want patients that understand what's going on. You want them to be well read. You want them to be well researched. And you have to put up with maybe some of their kind of off the wall questions sometimes too, because it's part of the price of having the system work better. But it does work better when everybody's more informed and everybody asks questions, and it's more of a transparent system.
Well, it does. I've said this before. My wife's a nurse, and she gets more and more now. She's working with patients, and either the patient or the family, usually the family, will say, well, I was just reading on the internet that, and it drives them up the wall. But on the other hand, it's like, well, good for them.
That's right.
They're researching
it's their body.
It may be bogus information, so correct them. Yeah. But at least they're out there trying to take control of their health.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, great. That's good stuff.
That's great stuff. Absolutely. Right. I think it's very important. All right, next article. This is a good one that I thought we should cover on the show, because this is one of my favorite authors, and I thought the point was really good. It's called How to Prioritize When There Is No Priority, and it was written by Jim Benson, and it appeared in Wednesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Well, Jim, as I said, he's one of my favorite authors. Sure. Always very engaging, and Jim does some great video work too. I'm going to refer to that that.
blogs, yeah.
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff on video. I'm going to refer to that a little later in the coverage of this piece. But Jim's a really good guy. He's been on the show, I think, twice now. And he always has a good thing to say. Well, in this piece, he's talking about what else? Personal Kanban. And for those of you who don't really know, really understand what it is, personal Kanban is, of course, a form of Kanban. Kanban is a lean, it's a highly visible approach. Visuality is really the key thing here. So it's a highly visible approach to organizing the flow of work in the most logical and efficient way. And originally, it was used in manufacturing. A lot of these tools, a lot of these techniques were originally developed in manufacturing for lean. But as in many lean programs as well, it really has spread now to be an effective way to organize work anywhere, in any environment, whether that's in kind of a service environment or a transactional environment, or even for those of us at home, personal Kanban, again, because it's just a way of organizing work. It involves really, and whether this is done physically or whether it's done on a computer, it involves kind of setting up work tickets, essentially, that you track through your Kanban board and through work in progress and setting up the work and work that you're working on, work that's done. You kind of move that through. So it's a very visual way of seeing what you're doing and organizing your work. Well, in this article, and again, the video that accompanies it, and the article is rather short, but the video is about 5 minutes, and Jim really delves into this topic really nicely in the video. So in the article and the video, Benson talks about prioritization. A student of his at a recent class asked him, well, how do you decide in what order to do something when nothing is really more or less important than everything else? And the student apparently had a bunch of work that was on his or her Kanban board. I don't know the gender of the person, but this person had a bunch of work on the Kanban board and said, well, I don't know how to prioritize it. It's all important. I don't know what to do first. Well, Benson's advice was, I think, really good, because he said, consider things that are beyond the mere importance or lack thereof of the project or task at hand. Because again, this person said they're all equally unimportant or important, whatever it was. So he said a couple things that were interesting, I thought. The first one he said is ease of completion. Some projects are really hard. Some projects are really easy, depending on your own personal skill level and things. Now, those choose that low-hanging. Jim said, but you want to mix it in with the harder stuff. You don't always want to pick the easy stuff to do. So, think about where you are in your day when you want to tackle a job. And if you're feeling good and you already have some good motivation going and you have some good energy going, maybe pick the harder one. Sure. But if you need to get going, maybe think about how easy it is to complete something or not to do that. The other one, which was good, and this is one that really is often considered, is how much do you enjoy the work? It's a good one. I mean, in terms of picking how you're going to be doing it and what order you're going to do it. Again, if you're feeling good, and you're off to a good start and you've got a lot done already that day, maybe take one that's a little more drudgery for you because you have to do it and you already got some good motivation to go into it. Yeah. If you're at the beginning of the day and you want to get started, maybe you want to do something you just like doing that you're really good at and you want to focus on that one. Or if you've had a tough day and you have another couple hours to go in your day and you're like, I just can't face that tough one right now. Do something that's a little easier for you that you enjoy a little bit more. That's fine. And the other thing he says, which is really important in terms of choosing, is, are others involved? And this is one that I actually do a lot. I mean, is it a project you're doing on your own, or is it something where there's some dependencies where other members of your team are waiting for you, or you need your feedback or something on the project? Maybe you want to prioritize those first to keep that ball rolling and let the other people do their work. That's really important perspective too. And by the way, as Jim also points out in this article, sometimes it's okay to just arbitrarily pick something from your list.
Roll the dice.
Sometimes it's just okay to say the first one your eye falls on, boom, just do it. It doesn't matter all the time. That has to be a priority. Well, the other thing, and when he starts with this article, which I thought was interesting, is prioritization can be stressful. He says that some people are stressed out about what to prioritize, and the reason that he says that is because people worry about making the wrong choice in the project that they choose. But to me, and as I read that, I kind of was like, well, how do I feel about that? Because to me, a Kanban system really should be about reducing stress, getting rid of stress. I mean, the idea of having a Kanban system and having everything be so visual is that you're going to have all your work there in front of you. To me, I'm always more concerned about not knowing what I don't know. If I know that it's up there, to me that's very stress relieving. Even if I'm not necessarily working on it, at least I know it's there, at least I know I won't lose it. My stress always comes from losing track of stuff. So to me, a Kanban system should really relieve your stress. If you're stressed out by the Kanban system itself, maybe you need to reorganize your Kanban system a little bit.
Well, I understand it though, because if we've had a Kanban board here for various reasons. It can get create stress when you look up there and you see all these little Post-it notes.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but just pick one. You know, like you said, I mean,
one,
don't get so. I think the message here is don't get so wrapped up in the process of the processing. Just do it. Just go through it. Begin to work on it, and that will help to alleviate the worry and the concern a little bit.
This sound, I think it was Michelle Labrosse. We did one of her articles, and I think it was Michelle Labrosse, and she was talking. It was kind of along the same lines, and part of it is the reason you pick whatever jobs you're picking to when you've got this stack is sometimes what's going to motivate you.
Yeah.
So like you said, sometimes it's like, let's take the easy one so we can get going to something, or sometimes you have the easy one out as your reward.
Right.
I'm going to get this hard one done because I know once I'm done with this, oh man, now I can work on this thing and really concentrate on this thing that gives me joy, right?
That's right.
And so sometimes you, like he was saying, you organize it in terms of what is going to move me through the day.
Through the day. That's very important. I think it's a very psychological thing, and Kanban is a very psychological process because it's really about motivation. And it's a good article. Read the article, watch the video. Jim is excellent on video, and his little 5-minute video that goes with that article was really, really worth the time to check it out.
All right. Well, now it's time for our tweet of the week.
That's right.
We
Always
tweet something that's completely nonsensical or silly or completely dumb.
Really?
Well, sometimes. This one,
but not this one.
This one is actually a little thought-provoking. This week's tweet of the week comes from SAS software. Technology becomes more than lines of code when it helps humanity. Now, I had to think about this. A little bit. Software is a tool to help humans help others, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what could be some examples of that? And the immediate thing that came to mind, I mean, we don't think of it as software, but it is software, is the stuff we do on the web, social media. I mean, think how often Twitter or Facebook have been used to communicate and pass along information during a crisis, whether it's a hurricane or an earthquake or a refugee camp, where we're finding out and being able to help people from the knowledge that we're gleaning from the software of social media. I'm going, okay, that's interesting.
That's valid.
I mean, aside from the actual, we think of software as a tool like Excel or SaaS software, for instance, right? But really, sometimes it's the stuff that we use that's driven by software. It's kind of interesting stuff. Fundraising sites is another. How many of us have used a fundraising site to help a family member or a friend who had medical needs.
GoFundMe, all those,
GoFundMe,
exactly right. That's good. That's true.
Stuff,
that's right. So technology is a means of helping others. That's a good message right there. I like that. Thank you from the SAS folks for putting that out on Twitter. All right, well, we're going to wrap up the show now, but I wanted to let you all know about something we're doing next week, which is really kind of cool, Dirk, I think.
IMTS
next week, Dirk and I, and Chris Smith and Christopher Martin, our line producer, we're all going to be together at IMTS in Chicago, and we're doing three big episodes of Quality Digest Live from the show. We're going to be in some of our partners' booths. Right there is the big IMTS balloon that floats all over. That's not Chicago underneath there. I'm not sure exactly where that is, but that's not
shooting going on.
That's not Chicago. It's way too green.
It's way too green. Yes.
Way too green, but it's probably somewhere just outside of Chicago, like in California. No, but we're going to be there next week. We're going to be there for the whole week, but we're going to be shooting QDL on 3 days, 3 separate days. So mark your calendars. On Tuesday the 13th, we're going to be in the booth of 3D Systems. On Wednesday the 14th, we're going to be in Nikon Metrology, and Thursday the 15th, we're hosted by Mar Federal. Now, on these shows, these 3 great shows, we're going to present live coverage of the HAPS at IMTS, happenings right there, plus some special guests and tech corners demonstrated by each of our hosts, and Dirk will be assisting with those tech corners, so you'll be able to check those out. So again, mark your calendars now for these 3 big shows coming to you live from IMTS. They're each at 1 p.m. local in Chicago. That's 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 p.m. Pacific. 11 a.m. Pacific, our normal time for all of our shows if you're there watching online. Of course, if you're planning to visit Chicago to take in the show, come by and visit us. Check it out. We'll be again in those 3 booths. It'll be in 3D Systems. That's in booth E3310 on Tuesday the 13th. Nikon Metrology is in booth E5060. That's on Wednesday the 14th. And Mar Federal is in booth E5614 on Thursday the 15th. So if you're in IMTS at Chicago, come by, check us out, and watch the show live in living color. We look good in living color, kind of. So come by and see us. We'd love to see you and say hi and meet our many viewers, all you out there. So come by and check it out.
That's right. So thank you for joining us today. And other than those 3 shows, we won't have a show next Friday.
We're going dark next Friday because we're doing the 3 shows during the week. But we'll be back with our regular show. I guess that will be on the 23rd. But definitely check out the shows next week if you're not in Chicago. And if you're there, again, stop by and see us.
All right. So long.
Have a good weekend. Bye.